All right, good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe coming here on Friday night, the 23rd of January already. My God, how things fly by. We have, of course, the NFC and AFC championship games this weekend. Uh, maybe not so surprising in the NFC side, but the AFC side, some shocking combatants going to be going on. Plus, we seem to be getting the coaching carousel slowing down as few teams have already gotten their guys together, and we're looking okay. How you doing, Nate?
I'm
Nate?
doing good. Yeah, man. You can't tell me that anybody thought that the Patriots, who won 4 games last year, were going to make it to the AFC Championship. And let me tell you something, if the Patriots happen to go to the Super Bowl, regardless of whether they win or lose, that's just as big as a turnaround as the Indiana Hoosiers were going to the national championship game. So unbelievable turnaround by the Patriots and by Mike Vrabel. Because let's be honest, he's the reason that this happened. And I think this goes back to, to what, 2 years ago when me and you both said this is ridiculous when the Titans decided to fire him. But we also said this is the best thing that could possibly happen to him. And that's exactly what's transpired. He went to a place where he would have more input, where he could pick his guys. And look what's happened. He's flipped the script and won 10 more games than they won the year previous. And he's in the, he's one win away from going to the Super Bowl. Unbelievable.
Yeah, let's stick with the AFC. Let's go back to last weekend. A lot of controversies surrounding the referees, when they should swallow a whistle, when they should play it, pass interference calls all over the place that have everybody pissed off. The Buffalo game, Buffalo and Denver game, which was a fantastic game, but a couple of things that came out of there, it's kind of heartbreaking. Is like, first of all, Bo Nix not being able to go on the rest of the playoffs, which we'll get to later. But what did you think about that game and the refereeing overall?
Was the refereeing great? No. But why are people surprised that there may have been some questionable or missed calls? I'm not. And I think it's kind of disgusting the way that people are, dragging this out and, just bitching and moaning about it. The guys are going to make calls. They're going to miss calls. It happens all the time.
All year long.
I'm sorry.
And all year long, a lot of people complain about the referee. I think the one thing, and it's kind of it'll never be perfect world, but with instant replay coming in, it was supposed to take care of a lot of this stuff. But there's two things that, first of all, and this just came to me. You have to, they say that it has to be clear and obvious for it to be overturned. You know what I mean? If it's not clear and irrefutable, that they're going to stick with the original call. And that really, somebody in the NFL hierarchy or the head of the referees should come out and explain on some show or in the paper or something define that to us. Because one man's clear and indisputable is not the same as every man's clear and indisputable. And the other thing about the refereeing overall is, I've said this forever. NFL is $1 billion industry, and it goes on for 9 months. For the teams, it goes on year long. If a coach could get himself a full vacation, he's lucky. So why don't we have full-time referees that can be judged and be coached all year long? I don't know why we don't have full-time referees.
I agree with that. They are judged to a degree. If they make mistakes, they're demoted or they're kicked out of doing higher up games. But the thing that I like about the ACC conference is when they go to review, they take you inside the review booth. and they show you the angles. You get to hear the back and forth between the video review people and the refs. Why can't we do that for every conference? Why can't we do that for the NFL and provide some transparency? I think the ACC doing that. I think the Big 12 now does it too. They're way ahead of the game. And I think the NFL should do that too, especially with all the betting that goes on. There should be transparency for what's going in to making the decisions. That being said, the reason that the Bills lost isn't because some ref made one call. It's because Josh Allen threw 2 horrible picks. It's because he fumbled the ball and gave the Broncos another chance. He doesn't turn the ball over 3 times. We're not even having any of these discussions. So you know what? You don't want to lose. Everybody blames losses on Lamar Jackson when the Ravens lose, but the Bills lose, and it's never Josh Allen's fault. I'm sorry, it was his fault. He turned the ball over 3 times. If you go back and look at these playoffs, the teams that lost the games turned the ball over 15 times. The teams that won, I think there were 3 turnovers. So that to me, I think it was 4 turnovers, and 3 of them were in that one game, with the Texans, because Drake May had some trouble holding onto the ball. But that to me, it was the difference in the game, not some stupid refs call. You're always going to get stupid refs calls that you can't control. What you can control is turning the ball over, 3 times.
Well, and to his credit, though, Josh Allen did take responsibility for the loss. He broke down afterwards, crying in front of the press, how he let his team down. So I'll give him credit for that.
And he did. He should.
Yeah. It cost his coach's job, as we predicted it could. We predicted going into this year, and both came true. We said Harbaugh and McDermott have to make some kind of moves. They've got to at least get over the hump, and especially when you go into, well, for the Bills at least, the specter of Pat Mahomes not being there had to open up everything. So yeah, it was mostly on Josh Allen. Also got to give credit to Sean Payton. Has done a hell of a job in his time with the Broncos, inheriting a team that was so far down the road, and now he's got them up on a championship level. But the one thing, and I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, it's kind of unforgivable to have Jarrett Stidham and Sam Ellinger as your only other options when, they were in the mix all year long. And you and I talked about this back in October. Why are the Giants hanging on to Jameis Winston? Hindsight is always 20/20. I'm not saying I know more than Sean Payton. I never would go down there, but it's shocking to me when you think about it, because I never really looked at the roster with the Broncos behind Bo Nix. That you're in the fight. You're in a dogfight. You're going to be in a dogfight all year long. You have the potential in October to pick up Jameis Winston and have him as your backup just in case. That's kind of a sin he didn't reach out to the Giants and try and snag him.
Or Joe Flacco, going into the playoffs. I mean, there's a number of people that they could have grabbed that, to me, that would have been an upgrade over Stidham. Sean Payton chose to stick with Stidham, and we'll see if that cost him, a trip to the Super Bowl or not. I think it's going to, because I think he sucks. And I think, it was just arrogance thinking that you could potentially win with him. If you remember last year, the Broncos picked up Zach Wilson, and they had Zach Wilson and Stidham on the roster all year battling for the backup spot. After the season, they dumped, Zach Wilson and rolled with Jared Stidham. And, I think that's I'm with you. I think that's a bad move, and I think it's going to cost him going to the Super Bowl. That being said, Sean Payton's done a phenomenal job. If he wasn't already in the Hall of Fame for coaching, he is now, after flipping this franchise upside down from where they were, with a young quarterback. And you do realize, who the highest paid player is on the Denver Broncos?
I would have to guess. Cortland Sutton?
Nope. Russell Wilson is the highest paid player. He's the highest paid player on the Denver Broncos. He is the biggest cap hit that the Denver Broncos are facing all year. They've got $35 million allocated in their cap to Russell Wilson, and they're a game away from the Super Bowl. That being said, I just think what Sean Payton's done is even more amazing. And I think that Sean Payton outcoached, his opponent there. And you know what? Everyone is going nuts about the firing of the coach up in Buffalo. Last year they fired Bill Belichick, who'd won 6 Super Bowls. They fired Pete Carroll, who'd won, a Super Bowl himself and went to another one. This guy's never been to one. He's never won one. And people are going crazy because Sean McDermott got fired. I'm like, what? Sean Harbaugh got fired. Mike Tomlin got fired. Those guys have Super Bowls in their pockets. This guy's never even been to one, and people are all up in arms. I think one of the reasons is because of, that press conference with the owner and the general manager. That should have never happened. That was embarrassing. That was just absolutely should have never occurred. Because that's behind the scenes stuff that you don't need to say into a microphone. But that being said, the owner can fire whoever he wants whenever he wants to. And me and you talked about it. They were thinking about firing McDermott last year. So
I think what really bothers the Buffalo Mafia or the Bills Mafia is, I think they know this is going to make no sense at all. But if Harbaugh was still out there, or they would sit there and go, okay, now we can get Harbaugh. What they're looking at is these candidates and not seeing a lot of quality there outside. I mean, Jesse Minter might turn out to be great with Baltimore. I mean, all these new guys might turn out to be great wherever they go. But
Jesse Minter's already been hired.
No. I said, with Baltimore, he's going to be great. But I'm just saying, when they're looking at the board of those people that everybody's throwing out there, Shula, all these guys, they're like, well, there's no track record. At least if we had, we know what we got with McDermott. I think they're more worried that there's nobody left for them to grab, even though Mike McCarthy's still out there. You never know. He might go there. Who knows?
Yeah, but I mean, I agree. That's what I think. You're right. But I also think, who thought that Mike McDonald, no one was going nuts about that hire in Seattle. And look what he's done with the Seahawks, winning with Sam Darnold leads the NFL in turnovers, and they're the number 1 seed in the NFL, and they're about to, potentially go to the Super Bowl. And when he got hired, nobody was going nuts about that hiring. And I think people were okay with it. I'm not saying people were up in arms against it, but I'm just saying there was a lot of question marks when Pete Carroll was fired and this guy that's never been a head coach in his entire life, was brought in. So
sometimes it works out.
And look at Dave Canales, down in Carolina. Did they have the greatest season ever? No, but going to the playoffs with Bryce Young and the crap roster that the Panthers have, I think, Dave Canales should get a lot of credit. And Liam Cohen down in Jacksonville flipping the script with Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. These guys were all relatively unknown guys that had never been head coaches. So I think before you flip out, why don't you see who they hire? Why don't you see how it goes? And if they lose 15 games next year, well, by God, go nuts and go protest in front of the Bills organization. But they're mad right now. But let's be honest, they've already sold out their brand new stadium for next year, and they're going to be fired up once the preseason begins.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the New England Houston game now, which with another game wasn't the prettiest game. Both of them was about the defense. CJ Stroud may have played his worst game ever. You never know. I hate when people sit there and say regression. I still think CJ Stroud is a good NFL quarterback, and he's a big part of the reason that they make it as far as they do. I mean, considering his wide receiver group never seems to be able to stay healthy. Hasn't really his running backs. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of help, should I say?
No, you're right. You're 100% right. Their offensive line's garbage. The Joe Mixon hurt himself away from the facility and missed the entire season, so they had to roll with Nick Chubb, who is about half of what he used to be, and a 5th-round pick, Woody Marks. Those were their 2 running backs. And then, even in this game, Nico Collins was hurt, didn't play.
Lost his tight end.
Yeah, his tight end, Dalton Schultz, didn't play. Their leading receiver in the game was Jaden Higgins, who's a rookie, and Xavier Hutchinson, who's a undrafted free agent. So, they don't have a whole lot as far as weapons for this guy. Now, I'm not going to make excuses for him. He had a horrible game. That being said, he threw 4 picks. I think, Drake May turned it over 3 times. So it was cold. It was snowing. He should have been more cautious with the football for sure. But they're acting like I was listening to the NFL radio, and Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller on Moving the Chains were acting like, they may move on from him after next year. And I'm like, he threw for 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 picks, and led them to the, game away from the conference championship. He's led them to the playoffs every year. He's won the division 3 out of 4 years. Let's shut the hell up.
Well, I want to bring something up because he had his best year with Bobby Slowick his first year.
Correct.
And he hasn't seemed to have he seems to Bobby Slowick and him seem to be on the same page.
Correct.
Always. And I think a lot has to do with the loss of Slowick. I don't know if you'd agree with me.
I agree. It's look at just look everywhere where people have a different play caller every season. It's ridiculous. Baker Mayfield is going to have his 6th offensive coordinator in the last 7 seasons. Yeah. Actually, it'll be 7 if you count the time he was with the Rams and the Panthers.
Yeah.
So 7 in the last 6 seasons if you count that. And I think he still played well somehow. But I think if you would give him a little stability with the play calling, I think, you might see the Buccaneers making it a little bit further. So I definitely think that has something to do with that. I think that's part of the reason that Jalen Hurts struggled a little bit this year as well, because he's not comfortable with the offense. The plays. I don't know if you heard a lot about what the Eagles were dealing with, but they couldn't even get the play call in.
Yeah.
Because, first off, Nick Sirianni should have fired this guy halfway through the season. Me and you both said that, and he didn't, but he got involved in the play calling. So what did that mean? That meant he was second guessing the guy during the game, and they couldn't get the play into Jalen. And so if you watch them play, 5, 4, 3, 2, and they would snap it. And then the defenders can get a really good jump when they know you're going to have to snap it before the clock runs out. They know when it's going to be snapped just as well as you do. So they get a really good jump on it. And I think that was a lot of the, a cause for a lot of the issues. And I agree with you. I think that's one of the problems in Houston. Obviously DeMeco Ryans has had his hand on that defense ever since he's been there. But that offense just kind of keeps going up and down because there's no skill players and there's nobody, no stability with the play calling.
Yeah. Well, you look at just the play calling. Look what on the other side of the field that day. I mean, you got McDaniels is not a head coach, but he's a hell of a play caller.
Unbelievable.
And so it worked out for them. Let's talk about the NFC where the Rams-Bears game. I wouldn't call it a classic. It was a fun game. That throw that was made by Caleb, it can never be drawn up that way. And there was a lot of luck involved because, he was able to drop back so far and get off a semi-clean throw. But it turned out well when the tight end got behind the defensive backs. It was kind of like the Doug Flutie throw years ago against Miami. It's like, how did you let that guy get behind you?
Yeah.
It's like, the one thing you were a defensive back. What would your coach tell you? Nobody behind you.
Yeah, I mean,
no matter what.
you get in the end zone and you keep everybody in front of you so you can make a play. You don't let people run past you into the end zone. And that, hey, I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan, but that's what he's good at, is the off script stuff, the stuff that you can't teach. But that being said, I know they won the game before, but if you go back and look at the last 2 games, he had 5 interceptions.
Yeah.
They got lucky to get where they got. And then that last game against the Rams, he threw 3 picks. If you don't throw 3 picks, the Bears easily win that game.
Right.
So he's got to clean it up a little bit. I know everybody wants to, fire CJ Stroud and anoint Caleb Williams as the greatest quarterback in the world, but both of them have some work to do.
Looking at the Rams, they're a solid team. I mean, you got to love Puka Nacua. You got Stafford. Everybody was worried about his health coming into the season. He had an MVP-worthy season. McVay, been there, done that, knows how to do it. I love their young defense. And, they took care of business. Now they're going to go up against Seattle, who I'm not going to say give any excuses to San Francisco. You play with the players you got available to you, but they were undermanned. There was and to give up the touchdown immediately on the opening kickoff. I mean, there was they were so far behind by the time first quarter was over. You knew that game was over.
Yes.
So it wasn't really a test for them. The Rams are going to be a test for them. They split the season series, going up to Seattle, but McVay, he's got a good defense. I think the Rams are destined to do it. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I think you were dead on there. I think that the Seahawks and the Niners game, the Niners really needed to put the game on Sam Darnold's shoulders. Well, because of the kick return and because of the other touch, I mean, it was 17-0 before Sam even really had to do anything.
Right.
So he threw the ball 17 times the entire game, Joe.
Right.
Which is great. I mean, that's awesome for them. But the Niners defense just was so worn out. They threw everything they had into that Eagles game, is my opinion. And they just had nothing left, including players. And so it just was over. But this is going to be a really interesting game. I think that the Rams, they've got the league MVP, in my opinion, Matthew Stafford. They've got 2 good running backs. They've got 2 unbelievable wide receivers in Devontae Adams and also Puka Nacua. They've got some pretty decent tight ends. Their offensive line is good. It's okay. It's not the greatest part of their team, but it's good. The biggest thing to me, though, is their defense. Can their defense get some pressure on Sam? Can their defense mix up coverages and confuse Sam? Because if they can do that, I think the Rams win this game for sure.
I think they can. I mean, I think the Rams really are a team that was put together for this run. So I think they're going to be in good shape, and their front office knows how to pick good players. They've just done a good job since this McVay, and I forget the name of their GM, since they've been there. They seem to know when to get the aging veteran that still has a little bit left. They know how to work the draft, and they've been phenomenal. So
yeah, Les Snead is their general manager, and to me, I think he's one of the best general managers in all of football, especially in the NFL. He has been the general manager for the Rams since February 2012. And people, ripped on his philosophy of trading away all his picks. And what happened? He traded away all his picks and he won the Super Bowl. Well, since then, he's gotten a bunch of first-round picks, and he's made excellent choices with the draft picks that he's had. So he can do it both ways, man. And I agree with you. I think he's an unbelievable general manager.
I put him right up there with Rossman or Howie over in Philadelphia about doing things.
I do too.
So I guess my pick is going to be New England and the Rams. What do you think?
Yeah, me too. I think it's New England and the Rams. I just think the Broncos are not going to be able to win with Jared Stidham. And I think that the Rams should be able to, cause some havoc for Sam Darnold.
Yep. All right, let's take a look at the coaching stuff that went on this week. Harbaugh got introduced. I was watched the press conference. I think he said all the right things. Of course, the media around here is, the thing about living in the New York area, everything gets overblown. And the only thing I say, and I hate to say this, I'm enthused. I didn't want anybody else. I'm glad they got Harbaugh, but around here, he's not. The Giants are not a Super Bowl team yet. And I remember when the Knicks went out and got Phil Jackson to come in and be their GM, and I had to tell a lot of my friends around here, stop it. Phil Jackson has never been a GM before. You don't know what he is. You don't know what he's going to do. Plus, you know, a lot of things can happen. So I know the Giant fans right now are just acting like, they're going to automatically leapfrog over the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't see that happening right away. They got to have another good draft, fill some holes, especially in the defensive backfield, and maybe another wide receiver or a more dependable tight end. And then I'll start getting excited.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think they've got some work to do for sure. But I mean, they've got a guy who knows how to do it. And as me and you talked about last week, I think he's going to be rejuvenated. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to want to prove the people in Baltimore wrong. So I think that's all good news for the folks in New York. That being said, I think that, Philadelphia is going to get a new play caller in there again. And, hopefully it'll be, if they get the right guy, I think they'll be able to fix a lot of their issues.
All right, let's go over a couple of the hires so far. You got Kevin Stefanski down in Atlanta. We liked him, and two-time coach of the year, going to a new place in Atlanta. Already, Baker Mayfield's thrown down the gauntlet to get the rivalry going down there. So the good thing he's going to a weak conference. He's gone from a conference that, he was always looking up at Baltimore and looking up at Pittsburgh, and he had Joe Burrow across state to worry about. But here he's going to have teams that are either on the rise or going down. We don't know. It depends year to year. 9 wins can get you a playoff game or a playoff berth in that division. Maybe 8 wins can get you a playoff berth in that division. What do you think about Stefanski?
I think it's a good hire. I think he was the 2-time NFL Coach of the Year for a reason. He's not an idiot. I think he was hamstrung a little bit by management in Cleveland, obviously. But, they've got a couple issues in Atlanta. They've got to get the quarterback situation ironed out. Are you rolling with Penix, or are you keeping Kurt around for a reason? I think they're keeping Kurt around for a reason because they're concerned about Penix's injury history and his current injury. He had a pretty serious injury this season, and he's had surgery on his knee twice before. So you add that up, Joe, that's 3 knee surgeries on a guy that's 24 years old. Yep. That would worry the hell out of me. So they need to figure out what they're doing. And, I wouldn't be opposed to keeping Kurt around. I think if they let Kurt go, I think that's a mistake. You're already going to pay him no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go down south a little bit. We got Chuck, which I can't pronounce, Leftley in Miami. Miami's new coach.
Oh, Jeff Hafley.
Sorry. Jeff Hafley. I mean, they're going from an offensive guru to a defensive guru, and you've got the two a question mark. I mean, at the end, the marriage between the head coach and the quarterback in Miami kind of fizzled at the end of this season. It was a bad season to begin with, and by the end of the season, when he thought he was going to be back, you could see he was making plans for a new quarterback. What does that bring to this team? With the fact of the matter, you don't really have a leader on offense per se, because you don't know what Tua's future is. What's that going to do for Hafley?
He's got some work ahead of him too, but they needed somebody to come in that's going to hold these guys accountable. People were showing up to meetings late. They were not coming to meetings at all. They were leaving early. They were doing whatever they want, and there was no, there was no, structure. There was no punishment. It was like the inmates running the asylum, for lack of a better term, down there. And some of the veterans that came into Miami were shocked by it. And that went on for about 3 years. And, McDaniel's a good, offensive mind. He's a pretty good play caller when they have the running game going. But you can't get away with that in the NFL. You have to have accountability for your players. You have to have some discipline, and you have to have somebody's got to be the guy that's in charge. And I think Hafley will do that. But they've got to get the quarterback situation. They should have never paid Tua that contract. A guy who had 5-6 concussions and also, had a knee injury. There was no
hip
reason.
Injury in college. I mean, he had a lot of injuries at Alabama.
Yeah, and has had more in the NFL. There was no reason to give him that length of a contract. There was no reason to give him that amount of money, and they're going to end up paying for that one way or the other. That being said, I thought Quinn Ewers did pretty well in the limited action that I saw from him. So maybe you bring in a veteran, maybe you bring Quinn back, maybe you bring Tua back, and you make them all somebody earned the job. I don't know. But you can't really trade him. Who's going to trade anything for him?
For Tua?
Yeah.
Damaged goods.
No one's trading shit for him.
No, there's better options around. Like you said, I mean, the downside of Tua is obvious to everybody. Upside is kind of hidden because,
Yeah. Well, he's got limited arm strength, and he can't really push the ball down. Yeah, he can't really push the ball down the field. He's the short, crossing routes, guys coming over the middle. He's not good at throwing the ball outside the hashes. He's not good at throwing it down the field, and that really limits what you can call. So I don't think, maybe somebody will take him on if you pay, the majority of his contract. I have no idea, but they've got some work to do with figuring out what to do with him. And they've got to get rid of Tyreek Hill, paying $30 million plus for an aging wide receiver who is not the threat that he once was.
Yeah, but he's turning into OBJ territory. You know what I mean? We don't. What he brings to the table is probably 30 catches a year, but like you said, the explosiveness is gone. The highlight reel film type plays are gone, and it's a big tag. All right, let's go over to Tennessee, which I was shocked that Robert Saleh. I know there's only 32 of these jobs, and he has a rookie quarterback he can maybe build around, which he didn't have in New York. But I was surprised he wanted to go into a rebuilding place.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that they wanted him. To be honest with you, I like him, and I think he's a fabulous defensive coordinator, and that was proven by what he was able to do with limited, personnel down the stretch. That being said, did I think he was going to get another head coaching job right now? I did not, and I was really, really confused by that. Maybe he'll shock us all and do a great job, but that team, that roster is trash, and I'm not sure if he's the guy that's going to flip the script on it. They had the guy in Mike Vrabel, and they pushed him out the door, and I'm not sure if this is a better hire than Billy Callahan. I mean, maybe it is, or Brian Callahan. I don't know. To me, it kind of seems like much more of the same.
Let's see, Jesse Minter up in Baltimore just got picked up. Good pickup, I guess. You know more about him than I do, defensive coordinator, but he does have a history with Baltimore, so he knows that organization well. The big thing is going to be who is he going to bring in as his offensive coordinator to get Lamar. I don't want to say Lamar had an off year. He just got beat up this year. but get him
Mhm.
get him the stuff he needs to keep him healthy and happy. So, what do you think about the Jesse Minter thing?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, that's been their problem ever since Wink left and Mike McDonald left. Their defense has been struggling. I would say, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I do kind of think Lamar had a down year. He was banged up a little bit, and then once he came back, he just didn't look right. I think he was playing a little bit hurt. So I don't think he's like, you know, done or anything. I think he'll be fine. But they do need, who he gets as his offensive coordinator is going to be, very paramount to their success. But I do think he's going to turn that defense around and, hold those guys accountable because their defense has been crap the last 2 years.
One of the openings that are left, one thing I had to laugh at, I was reading an article today where three coaches have canceled their interviews with the Cleveland Browns, which is
Yes.
not shocking at all. It's just, no.
Yeah, one of them was Minter, who had already taken the job at Baltimore, and then the other one was Mike McDaniel, or one of the other ones was Mike McDaniel, who took the offensive coordinator job down in L.A. for the Chargers. But it was funny because now he's interviewing for another head coaching job, but he'd already taken a job. It's like how do you take a job and then interview for your job? It's like Lane Kiffin in the pros.
Right.
It's kind of a joke. But yeah, I don't think anybody really wants that Cleveland job, and I think they're probably going to promote Jim Schwartz.
I don't know why they haven't already. Just makes
I
that
agree.
that was your strongest unit. We said it last week. It's your strongest unit. Keep that unit at least happy. That unit
And
kept
keep
you in
Miles
game
Garrett.
position. Yeah,
Keep Miles Garrett happy. He is the best player on your team. You're building your whole team around him. Keep him happy, and then bring in a young up and coming play caller.
right. Exactly. Um, I think I think the Steelers and Buffalo should get done rather quickly. I hear Joe Brady left Buffalo already.
I heard he interviewed for the job. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if they, didn't come to an agreement or whatever. But I know he interviewed for the job. I know that they also interviewed Brian Daboll today. The Bills did, which I think is kind of weird. But the Steelers are interviewed Mike McCarthy today, and I think that might be a good fit for Pittsburgh. He's from Pittsburgh. He's a Pittsburgh guy through and through. I think he could, either coach Aaron Rodgers one more year or bring along a young quarterback. Either way, I think Mike McCarthy could fix their offensive problems. Do I think he'll be there for 20 years like the last guys? No.
No.
But you may not get somebody who's going to stay there for 20 years every single time. And I think as far as the candidates that are out there, I think McCarthy would be the best fit for Pittsburgh.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, like you said, another reason is if he could bring Aaron Rodgers back for one more year, they have a history together. They know this. Aaron knows his system, and it's one of those partnerships that their first, what was it? They were together for what, 6-7 years
Yeah,
up
they
in
won.
Green Bay.
Yeah, even I think a little bit longer, and they won a Super Bowl together
Yeah,
and won a lot of games. So, I think it makes a lot of sense.
yeah, that would make a lot of sense. The other one, the other two jobs, Arizona and the Raiders, are kind of who cares. I think whatever's left over, it's kind of like table scraps because both those teams look like they're not gonna be a Rabel where you can walk into a 4-win team and turn it around in 1 year, and especially with the ownerships of both those teams, it's going to be take a long period of time, and they don't have patience. They don't. So it's like you're just gonna keep running on that same treadmill, not losing any weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the one franchise hires a young guy and doesn't give him enough time to get his coaching legs underneath him, and then the Raiders hire a guy who's proven, who's older, that wants to completely change around the entire culture, and they don't give him more than a year to do it. So I don't understand what either franchise is doing, and I don't think it really matters who the coach is.
All right. So before we leave, give me your synopsis or your critique, should I say, of the national championship game?
Man, it was just typical Indiana football. I mean, they were the best team in college football this year. And, I think, part of it was they had a really, really good quarterback. Part of it was they had a lot of experienced, good football players. And the other part of it was they were extremely, extremely well coached in all three phases, and they were aggressive. Look at that play call on 4th and 5 on the 20-yard line going in. They could have kicked a field goal right there, gone up by, what they would have gone up by 10 and, been pretty comfortable. But no, no, he looks, Kurt Signetti looks at his players. He looks down his sheet and he's like, hell no, dude. I've been going for it all year. I've been aggressive all year long, and we're going to do what we do. And on 4th and 5, he calls a quarterback draw up the middle, and Mendoza makes a play for the ages and ices the game. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. Nobody at the beginning of the season thought that Indiana would win the national championship. Nobody. I heard all these people talk about how Indiana wasn't any good, that they won games the year before because they didn't play anybody. Well, let me tell you something, Joe. They played some fucking people now. They beat Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, and Miami 4 games in a row after having a pretty difficult schedule throughout the season. So they earned it. They deserve it. And it was magical to watch. The only thing that hurt me was I was kicking myself the entire time thinking, man, we could have beat Indiana if we'd have just made the field goal from the 10-yard line in the Big Ten championship game. We were Ohio State was the team that came closest all year to beating them. And so that was kind of discouraging, but they earned it, and it was unbelievable to watch. And kudos to Indiana and Coach Signetti. It was truly amazing, the turnaround he did at that school.
And now we'll see what Mendoza can do in the pros. I mean, he's got the ability. There's something about his personality that's so quirky. I think it's good for him to be going to a place like Vegas, because in a big city like New York, like the Jet fans wanted him here, I don't see his personality playing well. I know everybody adapted eventually to Eli being, that quiet, unassuming kind of guy, that oh shucks kind of guy. That kind of doesn't play in the New York area. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. It's Vegas. I mean, it depends on who they bring in to coach him. I don't know. That's the only thing I worry about with him, is he might not get the best coach to take over there.
Yeah, that's his problem. He may go to Vegas or New York, and both of those franchises are trash.
Yeah. So, you going to be on this weekend or?
Yeah, possibly. We're not certain yet, but we may come on and wrap up the season and talk about, obviously, this crazy transfer portal world. It's been nuts, man. These guys sign multi-year contracts and they don't care. They leave anyway, and now they're getting sued, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this Duke lawsuit, because this kid signed a 2-year deal, and now he's trying to go to Miami or LSU. So, or it looks like Miami. But the tampering is just disgusting. He wasn't even in the transfer portal. And then the last day of the transfer portal, he jumps in and says he's going to Miami. And it's like, well, how did Miami know that you were going to be available when you weren't even in the portal? And the Ty Simpson, the quarterback for Alabama, who never went in the portal, he gets interviewed and comes out and says that Miami and Oregon each offered him $6 million. Well, how are they offering him $6 million if he was never even in the portal and wasn't even allowed to be talked to? It's disgusting.
Well, that was what we worried about, and it came true, and they're going to have to do something to slow it down. Yep. All right. Well, we are on a break now. We got a snowstorm that's going to hit, I guess, half of America this weekend, bearing down on us. Yep. And hopefully it's not as bad as they're predicting. The whole thing is every time they get any kind of weather, it's like the only time these meteorologists have fun. So they get you on your edge saying, "Oh, you won't be able to get out here." I know tomorrow, if you go by your local supermarket up here, you'll see the parking lot packed, and there'll be no bread and milk on the or eggs. It'll be crazy. So hopefully it won't be as bad as they say, and hopefully we have good games this weekend. I do worry that the Denver game is going to be, I don't know.
Yeah. It could be rough.
But you never know. Sean Payton is a good coach, and he's had Stidham all year, so he knows maybe what he can and can't do with them, and maybe come up with a game plan.
Yeah, he's had him for 2 years now, so I think he does probably know what he can run. But I worry about him just making plays.
Yep. All right, my friend. Have a good night and a good week. I will see you next week.
Sounds good, brother.